by his son and 2 loyal servants, Odysseus kills all the 108 young aristocrats who have besieged his wife. All scores are paid with interest. Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name is Zachary May, and today we are reading the great books of Western civilization, continuing with the Odyssey. This is the Robert Fagles translation, book 22, and as always, I will begin with a brief plot summary before getting into analysis and commentary. Odysseus turns to the suitors and shoots Antinous through the throat. He falls and dies midway through a sip of wine. The suitors make threats against what they think is just a beggar, assuming that he had shot his arrow by mistake. Odysseus, however, accuses the suitors of abusing his servants, his home, and wooing his wife, thinking that he would never return. The suitors realize in terror who is speaking. Eurymachus gets his composure back first and declares that all their doings were Antinous' idea. Since he's dead, Odysseus can let the rest of them go. They'll pay him for the damages, and he can tax the people to get whatever else he's lost. Odysseus refuses. No amount of wealth will change his mind. Eurymachus urges them all to seize their weapons and rush at the king. Just as he draws his sword to do so, Odysseus looses an arrow, killing him. Next is Amphinomus, who also rushes the king. Telemachus spears him from behind, then goes to fetch the spear and shields he'd laid aside for himself and his father, also bringing arms for the 2 herdsmen. Odysseus keeps picking men off with arrows while they suit up. Finding themselves trapped, the suitors hoist Melanthius, the goat herd, through an air vent so that he can go and fetch them some weapons from the storeroom. Telemachus then sends Eumaeus to go and secure the room. He does so and ties up the goat herd securely. As the 4 men prepare to fight what is now a serious armed force, Athena appears, disguised as Mentor. She urges Odysseus to fight harder, remembering how small these foes are compared to the Trojans. The 2 groups then begin trading volleys of spears. The suitors' aim is continually disrupted by Athena, while Odysseus and his men hit their marks. The remaining suitors begin to retreat as they get chased down by Odysseus and his household. One of the suitors begs for mercy, but is refused and killed. The bard that the suitors forced to perform also begs for mercy, and Telemachus vouches for his innocence, as well as that of the herald. Both of these 2 are spared, but not a single suitor escapes with his life. Odysseus then sends for Eurycleia, and asks that she brings the guilty maids downstairs. Odysseus has these women help them clean up the hall and carry all of the bodies out into the courtyard. Afterward, he tells his son, kill them. Telemachus does so once the work is done. The goat herd is also mutilated and killed. Finally, Odysseus lights fires with sulfur to cleanse the house. The loyal maidservants crowd around him with tears and rejoicing as Eurycleia goes to wake Penelope. Beginning in this chapter of the Odyssey, according to Knox, the story turns toward being more Iliadic. There's a lot of this guy speared that guy, and his armor clanged as he fell. In the Iliad, that would have been every other sentence. We would be used to it. But in the Odyssey, it definitely stands out. Even as we return to these familiar turns of phrase, though, we get an opportunity to see how the Odyssey treats fighting differently from its predecessor. There are 2 major moments in this chapter that I think mark a shift for the Greeks concerning human dignity and mercy or pity. Let's review what Homer has said on these topics before in the Iliad. So 3 times in the Iliad, a warrior who's been defeated begs for his life and offers a ransom. All 3 times, however, the offer is refused and the man is killed. Mercy could be given, in theory, if the ransom promised was worth it to the victor, but by the time the Iliad opens, it really is not. Pity was considered a weakness in these conditions and was discouraged, like with Agamemnon and Menelaus. Then there's the dignity of the human person, specifically of the body. When a soldier was killed in the Iliad, the victor tried to strip the armor and weapons from his body as quickly as possible to try to get loot and wealth. However, if the dead man's comrades are nearby, they fight to protect his body, to ensure that this does not happen, that he receives proper burial rites, the solemn honors owed to the dead, we are told, and to make sure that the enemy soldiers will not mutilate him further, which happens several times. But the thing is, both sides behave this way. So the implication is the dignity of the body matters in some circumstances, but not others. All well and good to respect the bodies of your comrades, but you don't have to really extend that to the bodies of your enemies. Sure, Agamemnon agreed to a day of burial for both sides of the war at one point, saying that that's right and good. But at no point do we see a soldier treating his enemy's body with respect once they're in his power. They'll make victory speeches, taunts, insult, or, like I said, mutilate the body further. Then, at the end of the poem, after Achilles has acted out the epitome of mercilessness and the epitome of disrespect for the dignity of the body against Hector, he has a complete turnaround at the end. He embraces pity, he has mercy on King Priam in his grief, and he honors the body of Hector, his enemy, as he would his own. Okay, now let's compare it to the Odyssey. Once again, we have 3 different attempts at supplication for mercy. First is by Eurymachus, second by Leodes, the prophet, also a suitor, and third by Phemius, the bard. Eurymachus is refused outright, and Knox points out that the words of refusal are the same as were used by Achilles when he refuses to help Agamemnon. Another sign that the story is now turning towards the more Iliadic attitude. However, Eurymachus' appeal is also quite different from those who surrendered in the war. He tries to claim that he's innocent when he's not, and offers to pay for damages. Odysseus knows better and refuses to let him buy his way out of paying the price for his crimes. Leodes, the prophet, offers nothing, but again, begs for mercy by virtue of being the suitor's prophet. He is innocent, he says. He's done nothing. Once again, though, this is a lie. He is a suitor. He was present for the entire 3 years before this. So we know that he helped force Penelope to finish off her weaving. He agreed and voted for the attempted murder of Telemachus. And he was just fine with living off of the house of Odysseus as all of these things happened. Odysseus kills him, pointing to all of these choices that he made as evidence of his guilt. Then, the third attempt. The bard pleads for mercy, and the herald who steps out of hiding too. They also claim to be innocent, except they are, and Telemachus vouches for them, so Odysseus stays his hand. What doomed the first two, Eurymachus and Leodes, was their decisions, made with their free will, as well as a refusal to take responsibility for them. They lie and they blame someone else. The two survivors, the herald and the bard, are actually judged by the same standard, their freely made decisions and their honesty about them. In the Iliad, remember, the criteria for judgment was usually the crimes that somebody remotely related to the person who surrenders did. Remember that Agamemnon got Menelaus to kill his prisoner by reminding him of what Paris did, and Achilles kills his because of what Hector did. But here in the Odyssey, the truth of what happened, of what somebody did, and their goodness are the criteria. With those as the deciding factors, this is a huge step forward for moral philosophy, one that also emphasizes the primacy of free will, which again has been a theme throughout this epic. Then there's this line that Odysseus says to Eurycleia after the fighting. "Rejoice in your heart, old woman. No cries of triumph now. It's unholy to glory over the bodies of the dead. These men the doom of the gods has brought low, and their own indecent acts. They'd no regard for any man on earth, good or bad, who chanced to come their way. And so, thanks to their reckless work, they met this shameful fate." Confirms a lot of what I was already saying before. Their fate was determined by their actions and attitudes about their actions. But there's an added development here. It is now unholy to glory over the bodies of the dead. That is new. Odysseus is demanding that the bodies of the suitors be treated with respect. This never ever would have happened in the Iliad. And fittingly enough, by integrating this respect for human dignity and pity, mercy, into his fighting, Odysseus displays the virtue of, dare I say it, balance and moderation, for which this epic is also known. The maids who are disloyal to Odysseus are also all executed. I suppose that that's not too surprising, seeing how Odysseus was willing to kill Eurycleia if she ratted him out, so how much more so for those who didn't raise him. Is it the best way to have dealt with them, though? I really don't think so. Then again, can you see them joining the group hug at the end of the chapter? If they're being judged for what they did, though, what was their crime? Sleeping with the suitors willingly? That is who we're talking about, by the way, the people who Odysseus heard slipping out of the palace in the middle of the night. We're not talking about the ones that got abused by the suitors. These are the ones that willingly left to go to the suitors' homes. But that wasn't the crime, not by itself, I don't think. Let's take a look at Melantho as an example, one of the disloyal maids. She shows disrespect both for Penelope and for her guest in the previous chapters, which could be seen as a violation of hospitality as well as uncommon, blatant insubordination. This seems to be what's concerning Telemachus when he decides to deal out a much harsher execution than he was asked to, so Ostensibly, that's their crime, but maybe not actually. When you look at the two actions together, there's a sinister implication. Again, take Melantho as an example. Step 1, she sleeps with Eurymachus. Step 2, she shows blatant disrespect for Penelope, Telemachus, and even Eurycleia the nurse. The fact that one action led to the other for her shows that she is not expecting or afraid of any retaliation. She's expecting, and maybe hoping, that the suitors will soon have control of the household, that Telemachus will be deposed of, that Penelope will be married off, someone else will be in charge. Ideally, Eurymachus. And so, we can also glean from that she's approving and cheering for everything that the suitors have been doing here. If Melantho can then be seen to speak for the rest of the disloyal maids, then this is the best argument for their execution from the text. Again, I still think that there are way better ways to have gone about it. They could be banished or something instead. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Let's discuss it down below. However, notice that in context, Homer is expecting his audience to be just fine with this. So we should be aware that this is probably where their moral values were at the time. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Also, comment down below and let me know, did the suitors and the disloyal maids get justice or just brutal vengeance done against them? Was there a better way to go about this? Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.